It's now time to jump into the whole workflow and kind of pipeline integration between Softimage and ZBrush. So let me show you how to do that. Let's open up an example scene here. And the scene we're going to open up is called 11_start. So I'm going to pop that open. And basically we're back to this scene here, which should look pretty familiar. Here's this object, the sample panel that we created a normal map from inside of Softimage. So let me open up the Explorer over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this object. Now there's an object here called base mesh for ZBrush. I'm going to unhide that. Okay. Now this object doesn't look as smooth as the other object. It's very squarish in nature. You can see it's got a lot of right angles, but it's much lower resolution. If you see the stats, it's only 5800 triangles, which is pretty low res. And if we take this object here and we subdivide it, it should look pretty familiar. It's basically a copy of the other object. The only difference is that this object, I'm going to be using it at the lowest subdivision, okay, at the basic polygon subdivision here, so it's as low res as possible. Now this is a base mesh that has all quads. It doesn't have any n-gons, it doesn't have triangles, it's all quadrangles, which is what ZBrush prefers and likes. It just subdivides the best, okay? So what I can do is I can take this base mesh that's already, it's got proper topology, and export that to ZBrush. Now at the moment it doesn't have a UV map, but I actually don't mind because I'm going to be sculpting this object. I'm not going to be mapping it or anything like that, so we don't need a UV map. And I'm just going to take it into ZBrush. So that's pretty easy to do. With the object selected and make sure it's at the lowest subdivision level, what we're going to do is we're going to go to File up here, go to Export, and we're going to export this out as an OBJ file. Okay. Now all these options at default are pretty good. Maybe I'll turn off the export material. Okay. It doesn't matter if you select export current UV set on or off. This object doesn't have UVs anyway, so it's not going to make a difference. And that's pretty much it. Then I'm going to click here and select a place for it. I like sticking stuff in the models directory, in Softimage project directories. Just makes sense. And I'm going to give this a name that makes it very clear and easy for me to understand what this object is. So I'm going to call this sample panel, and I'm going to put the word from _ XSI, which is Softimage's former name. It's just shorter, and it's good for doing like naming files and things like that. So sample panel from XSI is what I'm going to call this. I'm going to go ahead and export this out. Alright, perfect. That's it. We're done here. The next step is to go into ZBrush and import the object in there and start sculpting. So that's what I'm going to do next. Alright, so we're here in ZBrush. I've already imported the object as an OBJ, and step one is to go ahead and subdivide this thing by a pretty good amount, not too much, but just enough so we can start doing some editing to this. So I'll check out my brushes. There's a lot of brushes in ZBrush 4. I like to use quite a few of them. So let's go ahead and try to use the blob brush real quick, and we'll take down the Z sub a little bit. Subtle is better. I find that works out a lot better. So usually use very small Z sub and Z add amounts when you're sculpting. It'll just give you a lot more control. So we can use like the rake brush, for example, which is fantastic for doing damage to objects and just making things look really cool. You can kind of even make this object look like it's been scratched up, dinged up pretty good, and that just adds more realism to it, and just makes it more believable, makes the environment kind of pop out a little bit more when objects look like they have some kind of a history to them. Something's happened to them, they've been worn and torn over time. It just makes things a lot more believable. So we'll just keep adding subtle details here, just sculpting in with the soft concrete brush, and a very small amount of Z sub, only a value of about 3. Something below 10 will be pretty good. And it's extremely subtle. I mean, it's very small details, but it does make all the difference. You don't want to go too crazy with it and just completely destroying the form of the object. You want to create enough damage so the object has a believable amount of detail, nothing too exaggerated. So using a fracture brush is great too, because you can create some more wear and tear, and by switching alphas with the fracture brush or any brush that supports an alpha, you can create pretty much an unlimited combination of details here in ZBrush. So pretty much it's your imagination is the only thing that sets a limit to your creativity, to what you can accomplish here in ZBrush. So it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Just go into this panel. Remember to use symmetry to go ahead and get two sides of an object done simultaneously. It just lets you work faster if that's what you're going for. So you can see ZBrush has a ton of brushes we can use. I tend to use the slash brushes quite a bit. If you look at this, you can actually use the slash brush to create some very interesting damaged objects. Kind of make it look like maybe it's something that came out of a Jurassic Park game or movie or something like that. Maybe some dinosaurs or raptor came and scratched this panel, and it was maybe leaping toward a potential target or prey. Some guy just rolled out of the way and it ended up scratching the panel, and who knows what happened to the guy. Hopefully he made it, but you never know. So just keep adding more. There's different variations of different brushes. So like the slash brush has about 3 or 4 different variations, and they do different things. Like the slash 3, I like it because it doesn't create these slashes where it looks like, you know, a dinosaur or something very sharp slashed across something, but it makes more of these soft slashes that look like dents. So it's great for doing aluminum panels, metallic objects that are just dented in. So if you're doing like maybe an old car in an abandoned place or something like that, you can put some nice dents into the hood and on the panels of the car and stuff like that. In this case, you can see how I can very quickly and easily use the slash brush to make some dents. And the pinch brush is great because the pinch brush takes areas and just pinches them together just to give things more detail. You can get a little more control. I like using a polish brush as well. The polish brush is excellent for doing, well, as you can see here, this kind of clay sort of polishing look to objects. I find that using, again, subtle amounts can give you great results. And you can switch from Z add and Z sub just to get different sort of looks. So right now, these brushes can work great for doing things like metal that looks like it's been welded or just damaged and stuff like that. The noise brush is fantastic. I tend to use this very often when working in ZBrush. It's great for adding noise detail to objects. It's especially good for doing like metals that are corroded or rusted, that are going to be chipped away over time and just have damage to them. It's especially great for doing rocky type hard surfaces. So things like rocks or concrete and just rough walls and things like that. The noise brush is fantastic for doing that kind of stuff. It's also great for doing maybe fossils or old bones and things like that. So the possibilities with the noise brush are pretty vast. So we'll just add some more noise to this, and feel free to just go crazy with it. Right now this object is just for normal mapping illustration purposes. So we can come in here. You can use the skin brush for a lot of things. Obviously it's best used for skin, but you can actually use it in creative ways just to add some more detail to inorganic objects, not just creatures and people and animals, but you can use it for metals too. Just change the alpha around and the values and you can get some nice subtle detail. In this case right here I'm using the weave brush, and it's actually pretty good just to add some extra detail to the metal. Make it look like the metal's really corroded and really messed up and dinged up pretty good. So I mean, you can use your imagination. This could be like just a piece of metal panel, you know, on the interior of maybe a spaceship or something like that. Maybe do some sci-fi sort of scene that takes place maybe on a ship where something went completely wrong. Obviously, if the inside's dinged up this good, I don't know, maybe aliens invaded it, maybe some kind of monsters or some kind of genetic experiment gone wrong on the ship or something like that. So you can use your imagination there and try to fill in those blanks. Again, the slash brush is just something that I tend to use very, very often in my workflow of ZBrush. It's just so versatile. And every now and then I'll just use the standard brush to push and pull things here and there. Just touch things up a little bit. Alright, so I think this is going to do it right here. Okay, so now that we're finished sculpting this, it's time to go ahead and get it out of ZBrush into the OBJ format. So what you probably want to do is save this out as a Z tool, which you could. Whenever you're done working in ZBrush on any type of object, it's always a good idea to save it out as a Z tool. To do that, it's pretty simple. Just come up here to the tool palette, click on Save As, and in the prompt, just save it under whatever name you want as Z tool, ZTL object. Okay. What we want to do now is we want to export this object out as an OBJ so that we can import it into a 3D package. This will give you the flexibility to, be able to import it into various 3D packages, as the OBJ format is supported by lots of 3D software out there. So just click on export and then just give it whatever name you want. Save it out to a file directory where you can find it easily and quickly, and that's it.